Today, we're gonna go over the differences of the Theatrhythm Final Bar Line demo and the Theatrhythm All-Stars Carnival arcade cabinet. All Final Bar Line footage will be from the Switch version, and all of the All-Stars Carnival footage will be from my arcade cabinet. To start off, I'm gonna lightly go over the differences between both versions, but if you want to jump right into the music, I've included some timestamps down below. I'm using the Animal Crossing New Horizons Switch for Final Bar Line. The game actually runs pretty smoothly, and the only stuttering I see is when I'm loading into a song on the actual loading screen while playing in docked mode. The gameplay is pretty simple. Any of the red buttons just need a single push from any button on the controller, from either the front or the trigger. The green is press and hold from those same buttons, and the yellow arrows just flick the analog. The game includes multiple combinations of these as the difficulty increases. While I don't mind using the Joy-Cons for the first two difficulties, the lack of any kind of grip makes it difficult to play on the two harder ones. I prefer to use a Pro Controller when playing them. This is my All-Star Carnival arcade cabinet imported from Japan. In order to actually capture the footage, I'm using a VGA to HDMI splitter in the back of it, and because VGA only carries video and not audio, I also have an optical splitter into my Go XLR to capture the audio. I actually tried to capture the audio from the 3.5 headphone jack, and it just sounded awful. Obviously, the game runs just fine. I've had some minor hardware issues, but nothing a hard reboot doesn't fix. The arcade cabinet gameplay works very similar to the console version. You have your 8-way gate stick to hit the yellow arrows, and these two buttons below them to hit any of your reds or greens. Because you only have 2 buttons on the cabinet instead of the 12 you get on a controller, some songs, especially on the harder difficulties, will rely more on arrows on the arcade cabinet. There's a various amount of settings that you can change on both versions. Keep in mind, this is still the demo version of Final Bar Line, so some things might be added in the future. I've left most settings at default as of right now. It starts off with standard things like trigger speed that changes the speed of the arrows that come at you, which is also available on the arcade cabinet. Music volume that changes the song volume. Trigger sound effect that change how loud the trigger hits are. And MS, or music stage, sound effects. The first audio option on the arcade cabinet is labeled Play SE. I'm thinking this is for when you're playing with someone online and they get a successful help thing or whatever. It might make these noises. And the trigger sound effects. One of the settings I've changed in Final Bar Line so far is the background mask level. This just makes the background a little bit darker so things like summons and spells don't mess you up. There's also an option for EMS, which we don't have those in the demo. This option is also available on the cabinet. It's called Black Back. Lane cover puts these Chocobo head cards in the way of the lane so you don't see the buttons coming as far out. This is also an option on the cabinet in the form of fat Chocobos. BGM timing for both docked and handheld mode. I have the TV mode set to +1. The cabinet doesn't have this option and it seems like people complain about a slight delay. I have no idea where the Moogle voices come into play. I know you can change their skin in the full version, and in multiplayer you can send Moogles to mess someone up. Single controller pair play is actually the game setting on the cabinet for 2 players. It lets one controller or side on the cabinet to control the top part of the song and the other side or right controller to control the bottom. There are a decent amount of options for turning on or off any special effects that happen while you're playing. If you're having issues seeing notes or feel like you have too many distractions on the screen, you can just turn them off. There are new trigger sound effects that were added in the game. You can switch between the old and new sound effects. On the cabinet, there's actually a lot of different trigger sounds that you can swap between. I usually stick with the default because the sound combos are just not great. You can also change your trigger color options between Type A and Type B. I'm thinking that Type B is for a colorblind option, but the arcade cabinet has so many options. I actually play using a different color than default on the arcade cabinet, and that will be present during my gameplay. The final option in the demo is to turn off camera movement. During a BMS or battle music stage, sometimes the camera will zoom in or out if you're fighting an enemy. This will disable the zoom, which I guess could help with motion sickness, or if it's just distracting. You can change all in-game settings from either the setting options on the main menu or right before you're about to play a song on the song card. The arcade cabinet also has this option. There's a settings button when you're picking songs, and then after you pick the song, you can still change the settings off the card. Last thing to note about the differences, of course the arcade cabinet is made to take your money, so you do have a timer when you're picking anything. You can actually change your party only on the first song, maximum of 3 songs depending on the setting. You can also play an album, which has a mixture of BMS and FMS stages, but those take 2 plays each. There is a third music stage called EMS, which stands for Event Music Stage, but that's not available on the arcade cabinet at all, and it's not on the demo, but will be available on console launch. The console version also has a lot more play options like series quests and the multi-battle. While the cabinet has online play features, it's mostly co-op and not really available due to no official servers being connected anymore. The cover photos for the songs are the same, which makes it so much easier finding the songs I want to play on the cabinet because they're all in Japanese. The only way to actually fail a song on the arcade cabinet is to just stop pressing buttons. You can suck all you want and your characters can die multiple times, but the song will still go to completion unless, again, you just stop pressing anything. Okay, here's where we'll jump into the side-by-side comparison of the songs. I've chosen 1 song per game available on the demo. It seems like the FMS stages are pretty similar with each other, but I have noticed some big difference in some BMS stages. Also, just because I own the cabinet does not mean I'm good at the game. I am absolute dog shit. So, here are the songs. that's it for today's video comparison. Let me know if you want to see more of this in the future. I have put the set list for All Stars Carnival in the description, so you can either leave a comment or hop into my Discord. And that's it. I'll see ya!